name is Julian Rutland and I'm a Year 10 student at Christ College. This year, I've been looking into the topic of solar panels. As part of my project, I interviewed Jake Fulcher, the Designs and Solutions expert at Christchurch Solar, to learn more about how solar panels work and why people choose to get them. I also spoke with my grandmother, Barbara Cook, and asked her why she didn't opt for solar panels in the long run. Why do you think in New Zealand people decide to get solar panels?
In residential, there's a few different reasons. A lot of the time it's economics, so their power bills each week are getting quite high, and solar is significantly cheaper than paying from power from the grid.
Yeah.
So a lot of people do it for that reason. A lot of people do it for resilience and independence, so not being reliant on the grid for power. So when there's power cuts and whatnot, then they have their own power available.
Yeah.
Sustainability as well, I think, is a little bit of a factor for some people. Trying to be more green and efficient with how much they use and producing their own to offset that is quite common as well. So it's different for different people, and especially in the residential market. In commercial, it's probably it's pretty much the same as well, yeah. So I think, very dependent on the person and the situation to why they would do it.
And what do you think are some common misunderstandings that would stop people from getting them?
Potentially people just not knowing what the potential gain is, so probably lack of knowledge potentially. Maybe false information from people with bad experiences. There's definitely in our industry a lot of I had a friend that said that they had a bad experience, so their view is bad on solar because they kind of go off word of mouth a lot of the time. So I would say that's probably the most likely misinformed situations is, people only know what they hear from close relatives and people they know, and it just takes one bad experience from one particular case to maybe give solar or the industry not a good rep for certain people.
How well do solar panels work in New Zealand, especially since the weather changes a lot?
Solar obviously works a lot more in the summer because there's a lot more daylight hours, but you're definitely producing, quite often 4 or 5 times the amount in summer than you are in the winter.
Yeah.
And then normally in houses anyway, the usage is the opposite. So people generally use more power in winter because they're heating their homes, and they use less in the summer. So it's this curve that fights each other.
Yeah.
Overall, New Zealand is really strong. We have a lot of sunlight hours compared to some countries. So you can definitely get a really good return and a really good performance in New Zealand, maybe compared to other countries because we have so much sun.
And how long does it usually take for someone to start saving money after installing them?
So I kind of break it down into 2 kind of scenarios. So for solar by itself, so if someone just installs solar panels, a good return on their investment ends up, we see quite often between 6 and 8 years. Okay, so that's how long the system has taken to pay itself off, and then from that point forward, they're in the green. Generally, a high quality solar system nowadays, the gear is really good, so you would expect a good system to last 20-25 years. So if it's paid itself off in 6-7 years, for a lot of people that's a really good investment and a good return. Solar and battery, which is what a lot of people do now as well, it can sit between more likely the 8 to 12 year mark in terms of the payback time, and that's just because of the bigger upfront cost that comes with battery storage. But you do get quite a different result when you add batteries to the mix.
And do you think government support makes a big difference in people's decision to use solar?
Yes, I think it does. If you look at, in New Zealand we look at Australia a lot, because they're our next door neighbours and we're always comparing to Australia. Australia's solar industry had a lot of government support with rebates and discounts from the government, and that definitely saw a massive injection of people doing solar because it was really, really cheap, so it became a no-brainer for people. However, it did have consequences as well. So our government, I think, is really assessing those consequences and, not doing anything too crazy because of what's happened over there, maybe. But definitely, if the government brought out encourage people, then it would definitely increase it even more. I don't think we need it though, with the gain that people have anyway from solar, just naturally. I think it's naturally going to become something that people will uptake as power prices get even higher.
And what would you recommend to anyone trying to get solar?
I would say definitely do a bit of research and talk to a few different people to make sure you're really getting good, solid advice. It's a new industry, there's a lot of people in it. I would say there's a big difference between not a great system that's been potentially designed poorly, or they use bad equipment, or they don't install it properly, compared to a really good system that's been designed really well, expectations been set. It's good, honest expectations of what the system's going to do, and then good equipment that's installed properly. There's quite a big difference between those two extremes, so definitely I'd recommend people to try and find what suits them best, and not just go for the cheapest option, because like any industry, that's not always the best option long term.
So what made you think about getting solar panels in the first place?
The question of power cuts, possible demand on electricity,
And what were you hoping they would help you with?
security of power if the power was shut off.
And did you talk to any solar companies about, and what did they propose you for solar panels?
I only got one quote from Harrison's, and that was including a battery that would go in the garage and store power. And the battery was the most expensive part of the deal.
Oh yeah, and why did you end up not deciding to not get them?
The price was $28,000, and I'm 85 years old, and I didn't think I would have value out of it.
Hello and welcome. My name is Charlie Sara, a Year 10 Christ College student. I have been working on my investigative journalism piece about motivations to play sport. I have made it my mission to try and figure out what actually motivates people to play sport. After some brief research, I found the operations manager for sport and recreation for the Christchurch City Council, Ben Rosica. I thought that he would be a brilliant person to interview. Another person that I discovered was Angela Leatherby, the sports liaison advisor for the Christchurch City Council, to hear her take on what motivates people to play sports. Throughout all of history, people have loved to play sport. From hunting with bows and arrows to see who can get the most meat, to cycling with fancy electric components. Sport has always been a crucial part of society. I talked to Ben Rosica, the operations manager for sport and recreation for the Christchurch City Council, to hear his take on what motivates himself and others to play sport.
It's changed as I've got a bit older. So I used to be a competitive swimmer for New Zealand. That was my main sport when I was growing up. So for that, it was I had a lot of enjoyment with being part of a team. So we were really, even though it was an individual sport, we had a really close-knit team. I learned a lot about hard work and dedication, which has now, I suppose, helped me in my professional career, in my working career. Nowadays for sport, I play on a social rugby team, so that's all about being social with friends. And I suppose for me now, running is my main form of activity. It is a sport, but I do that for exercise, but also for kind of like if I had a really tough day at work, about clearing my head. So yeah, that's my motivation. I've always been involved in sports since I was a young kid, but a lot of it's to do with teamwork and making friends and camaraderie as well.
Next, I asked Ben what he thought motivated others to do sport.
Probably got lots of different reasons, but I suppose teamwork again is one of those things, and enjoyment. Being part of a team is really motivating. You can make some really good friends and really good relationships, depending on how competitive you are. A lot of people like pushing themselves and trying to exceed to a really high level. So when you look at professional sports people, they have worked extremely hard at the skills that they've got to try and make a career out of that. So I suppose it depends if you're wanting to do it from a social point of view or if you want to do it as a professional career. But I think in a lot of those team sports, that camaraderie again is really something that people enjoy.
I asked Ben what he thought motivated others to play individual sports.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I suppose that when I was swimming, a lot of it was individual. You're swimming up and down by yourself, and it's about pushing yourself, to your own limits, knowing what those limits are, and pushing yourself. So I think a lot of it's about goal setting, especially a lot of sports, but individual sports is setting yourself those goals and working really hard individually to try and achieve those.
Next, I talked to Angela Leatherby, the sports advisor for the Christchurch City Council. So let's hear her thoughts on what motivates people to play sport, as well as some of the ways that the Christchurch City Council helps with the constant changes in sport.
Yes, I have also, like Ben, been in numerous sports, from gymnastics to athletics to rugby, and now I'm an avid runner and do a little bit of biking in between that as well. And I do that for my mental well-being as much as for my physical well-being. I just find now I actually need exercise in my daily life. Yeah, it helps me balance. So yeah, that's my main motivation.
Next, I asked what was the biggest challenge Angela had to face in her job.
Challenging environment of sport, and making sure that as a council we remain flexible and adaptable, and that we don't sort of have hard and fast ways of doing things, because there's so many new sports out there. Like Ben mentioned pickleball, but we've got paddle tennis, we've got kiorahi, waka ama is a really big sport that's starting to emerge in the water space. So I think that's a continual challenge that we face, is to always be able to stay adaptable and flexible and make sure we're meeting the needs of everybody.
So, what motivates people to play sport? Well, what I have found is that sport motivations change from person to person. And some are to become more fit, some to make more friends, and some are to become the best in their respective categories. Sport for some people is also often used as an outlet after a hard day at work or at school. I hope I bettered your understanding on what motivates people to play sport. Thank you for listening to my audio package. Throughout all of history, people have loved to play sport. From hunting with
Hi, my name is Cooper Godfrey. I'm currently a part of the Newsroom course at Christ College. My investigative journalism topic is, are prep and public and private schools actually worth the money before high school? I've interviewed students who attended private and prep schools, and also students who attended public schools. My final interview was with my old teacher from Medbury, Alex Seals. She is a prep school teacher for Year 8 students. I believe that this variation of information gave me a very good understanding on the topic. Is going to a prep school like Medbury before high school actually worth the money? For my example, I will be using Medbury School, which is based in Christchurch, New Zealand. To attend Medbury School in years 3 and 4, it costs $23,202. In years 5 to 8, it costs $25,722. I'm here to interview Ben about his experience at Medbury. Ben, as someone who has previously attended a prep school before high school, how do you think that it helped you?
As someone who attended a prep school before high school, I strongly believe that it has helped me so much going into high school. It gave me so many opportunities in sport, culture and academics. An example is when I attended the North Island tour in 2023 at the end of year 8.
Thank you. I'm here to interview Zach about his experience at Med.
My name is Zach, and I've had the privilege of being a student at Medbury for my intermediate years of Year 7 and Year 8. When I first arrived at Medbury, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I was excited, but also a little bit nervous. What I found was something truly special. A place where every student was encouraged to grow, to try new things and become the best version of themselves. Medbury isn't about academics. Although I've learned a lot in the classroom, it's about the values which we carry.
Thank you, Zach. I'm here to interview James DeBrose about his experience going to Kirkwood, a public school, before high school. I'm here with James DeBrose, and I'm going to ask him a few questions about what it was like to go into a public school before high school. James, did you feel less prepared for high school than the other students that attended private schools?
I think the kids who came from Medbury seem to have a significant advantage when they arrived at college. They have been taught by specialised subject teachers who focus deeply in one area. For me, coming from Kirkwood Intermediate, I had one single teacher throughout the whole day. Her name was Miss Twalamai. She did what she could, but she didn't specialise in a single subject, making it hard to prepare me for college. For example, most Medbury kids had already done algebra, while I had never heard that word in my life.
Thanks, James. How do you think going to a public school in New Zealand was different from other schooling options?
I believe the Medbury kids were developed into the young men who can make it through the challenges of high school. The strict ruling by the various teachers at Medbury forced a strong, an obedience policy into the Medbury boys. Well, at Kirkwood, it was a very different policy.
Thank you. As of July 2025, New Zealand has 116 independent private schools that serve approximately 34,000 students, which is about 4% of the student population. As someone who went to a prep school myself, I felt well prepared before high school, and I was aware of the cultures that are talked about every day at school. I was also aware that we'd have to do much more homework than we would at a public school.
Number 1. What is the requirement to be a teacher at Medbury? To be a teacher at Medbury, you obviously have to have undergone your university degree in teaching. There is no requirement of how much experience you have. I suppose the school just looks for people that would fit what the school is after. So I started teaching here after 2 years of teaching, my first year being in a boarding school in the UK, and my second year being teaching Year 7 at Heaton Intermediate. So I think why I got the job at Medbury, was because they liked that I had experience working in a boarding house, I enjoyed working with boys, and that I had intermediate age experience. What opportunities does Medbury offer that public schools don't? Medbury offers so many opportunities that you will know about, but lots of them are to do with the clubs. So everything is done at school. So we've got from our sports teams to our chess club to robo-proggers to DT crew to anything that you can think of. It's all done after school. So this makes it a lot easier for parents as they don't need to transport their son somewhere else. The school just offers these extra things. A new initiative is that there's going to be a maths after school tuition program. So with this, it would be that, again, parents don't have to take their children anywhere else. They are already at school, which is a big bonus for busy working families. We also have lots of opportunities in terms of exchanges and doing things with other schools too, which isn't that common in the public sector. What skills would my child be learning here that they wouldn't be at home or in daycare? I suppose at a school like Medbury, it's teaching the old traditional values and getting it down to real simply the please, the thank yous, the holding doors, showing the respect to everybody, especially to those older than you. By being at a school like Medbury from a young age, you are used to moving around classes, which is the real world in high school. So boys aren't just in one place all day. They will be seeing different teachers, they'll be interacting with different people and learning that you can't pick and choose who you come across in life, as your teachers might not always be the people that you choose, but you have to cope and manage in the environment with. What kind of communication do you maintain with your parents? So my main form of communication would be email or seeing the parents in person. The parents love to know what's happening. Boys at 13 years old are very not great at sharing sometimes, so making sure that parents are aware of what's happening in their son's life at school. Every term I will send a check-in email to tell how the son is going. So that's something I started from last year, which I think is really important, is these parents, they're paying for a service and they deserve to know what is happening at school. The big way we communicate to a wider group of people is through the app alert system. So parents get class apps, they get group apps, and that just gives information out.
My name is James Jenkins. I'm a Year 11 student at Christ College, and my investigative journalism topic is on procrastination, something most of us are familiar with. In this project, I've explored the psychology behind why we procrastinate, spoken to university students about experiences, and looked into expert strategies to overcoming it.
Procrastination is an age-old phenomenon. The word originates from the Latin word procrastinus, a combination of pro, meaning forward, and crastinus, meaning tomorrow. The concept isn't new. Ancient Greeks had their own term for it too, akrasia. However, procrastination isn't all about laziness. It's an emotional regulation. People delay tasks because they want to avoid certain discomforts such as boredom, frustration, or anxiety, and want to escape it. Our brains are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain, even if it means sabotaging our long-term goals, which is why a deadline often feels less pressuring than the immediate pleasure of checking your phone or watching TV. Studies in psychology show that procrastination is a self-defeating behaviour that thrives on short-term relief. When we avoid an unpleasant task, we experience temporary reduction in stress, which reinforces the habit of delaying it further. This creates a cycle. The more we procrastinate, the more stressed we become and the harder it is to start. Interestingly, there's also another element in play. Researchers have identified something called time inconsistency, where our brains prioritise short-term rewards over long-term benefits. One of the most cited works on the topic of procrastination comes from Dr. Piers Steel, a psychologist and author of the book, The Procrastination Equation. He reckons that procrastination is not just a flaw of willpower, but a complex interaction of motivation, value, and impulsiveness in time. According to Steele, understanding this equation can help us create strategies to overcome procrastination, like setting clear deadlines or breaking tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks. In the end, maybe beating procrastination starts with the simplest yet hardest step yet, just starting. According to Dr. Joseph Ferrari's research, around 20% of adults identify as chronic procrastinators, and surveys show that up to 43% of people admit to procrastinating regularly. So if that's you, you're not alone. But what does procrastination actually look like? For some, it's scrolling endlessly through social medias. For others, it's organising their entire workspace before getting started. One study found that the average procrastinator spends over 2 hours a day avoiding tasks, which adds up to more than 15 hours a week of wasted time. Interestingly, multiple studies I found also show that procrastination is more prominent among younger adults, with students and people under 35 reporting the highest rates. So I went to test that and interviewed 2 students, Zoe and Hugh, at the University of Canterbury. I interviewed Zoe first, a civil engineering student. Do you consider yourself to be a procrastinator?
I do consider myself to be a procrastinator, and I have ever since school, when my teachers would remark that it would really probably be helpful and alleviate a lot of stress for myself if I started my projects sooner than the day of the due date.
What does procrastination mean to you?
Just doing absolutely anything except the task that is most pressing.
How does procrastinating make you feel?
Really good in the moment, I'm doing what I want. I'm leaving behind all of those difficult tasks that are really gnawing at me, but eventually I stop enjoying doing the things that I'm doing to procrastinate, and the stress just takes over. And eventually, I would say the stress is not worth the temporary dopamine hits that you got from doing whatever you were doing to procrastinate.
Would you like to stop procrastinating? If so, why don't you?
I would like to stop procrastinating, but that's easier said than done, especially because even though I do procrastinate, I seem to get everything in on time and still end up coming out the other end fine, so that's how I justify it, really.
Are you currently procrastinating?
I am currently procrastinating and have been all morning because I'm supposed to be studying during study leave, but instead I made my coffee slowly. I lay in bed longer than I should have. I took a really long time getting ready, and so it is unfortunate, but it's really just habits that I can't seem to get out of. So I would love to stop procrastinating and start getting on to things quicker.
Now I interviewed Hugh, an economics student.
I do consider myself to be a procrastinator. I remember one of my teachers in school telling me that last minute was not a reliable strategy, but the problem was that I kept getting excellences in her class, so I didn't really listen to her. And then I got to university and I realised that she was actually kind of right. Last year was quite a difficult year to be a procrastinator during, and I think I have improved this year from where I was, partly because I enjoy what I'm studying now, so doing that is enjoyable in comparison to creating more stress for myself. So I think I have improved, but I'm still a procrastinator.
What does procrastination mean to you?
Procrastination to me means, doing almost anything other than the task. So I will clean my room during study week, wash all my clothes, and exercise. I'll do everything but the task at hand.
How does procrastinating make you feel?
it feels good at the time.
Would you like to stop procrastinating? If so, why don't you?
I think I have improved, but yeah, I'd like to stop. But yeah, easier said than done. It's a mental thing where often I find when I just get started, it becomes a lot easier. So I need to keep making that choice to start.
Are you currently procrastinating?
Currently, no, I'm not procrastinating, and I'm walking into the library to nail a day of study. So yeah, can't wait.
During the interviews, both Zoe and Hugh mentioned the urgency of just starting and how much easier everything becomes once you do so. This is similar to the advice of psychologist Dr. Tim Pitchell. Pitchell says that starting a task often lowers the emotional barrier that keeps us stuck. A similar idea comes from Kevin Systrom, this co-founder of Instagram, who came up with the 5-minute rule. The 5-minute rule is where you commit to a task for just 5 minutes because once you've started, it's much easier to keep going. Hugh also pointed out that he was beginning to procrastinate less and less because he was genuinely enjoying what he was studying. This reflects back to the start when I mentioned how our brains are wired to seek pleasure and avoid discomfort. When a task feels interesting or enjoyable, the emotional resistance of our brains tend to go away. But what about when you can't make something enjoyable? Experts, including Dr. Pitchell, suggest focusing on the process rather than the outcome. For example, instead of thinking about finishing the essay, focus on writing just one paragraph, or create a work environment that minimizes distractions and can make it easier to stay focused. Even small things like setting a timer like the 5-minute rule for focused work sessions or pairing work with something enjoyable like listening to music can help. The core idea is to reduce the barrier between you and starting, whether it's adjusting your mindset, changing your environment, or even rewarding yourself. These small changes can help you overcome procrastination. Procrastination may feel like a personal flaw, but it's something many of us struggle with, and as we know, it's tied to emotional and psychological challenges rather than laziness. Whether it's taking that first small step of starting, finding interest or joy in the task, or even using expert strategies, the key is to get from avoiding the task to action. Progress doesn't necessarily have to be perfect, it just needs to start. So next time you're tempted to put something off, remember, even the smallest step forward is all you need.